In the glittering heart of the city, where towering skyscrapers kissed the sky and money flowed like water, lived a man named Richard Thornfield. Richard was not just any man. He was a billionaire, his empire stretching across industries and continents. With his impeccable taste and endless ambition, he had built an empire that could only be matched by his desire for more. Richard's life was a whirlwind of meetings, deals, and soirees, leaving him with little time for his personal life, especially for his two young children, Emily and Ethan. He knew he needed someone to take care of them, someone who would understand their needs and bring a spark of joy into their lives. Samantha Grant was a young woman with a heart as bright as her smile. Samantha had always possessed a natural talent for connecting with children, and her experience as a babysitter had made her a favorite among the city's elite. When she received a call from Richard Thornfield, asking her to take care of his children, she was both excited and apprehensive. The Thornfield mansion was a sprawling masterpiece of modern architecture, a testament to Richard's wealth and taste. Samantha was awestruck by its grandeur when she first stepped through its doors. Emily and Ethan, initially reserved, soon warmed up to Samantha's infectious enthusiasm. They spent their days exploring the mansion's nooks and crannies, playing games and reading stories. As weeks turned into months, Samantha became an integral part of their lives, her laughter echoing through the halls and her kindness warming their hearts. Richard was impressed not only by Samantha's rapport with his children, but also by her grace and intelligence. Their conversations were a respite from the hustle and bustle of his demanding life, and he found himself looking forward to the moments when he could steal a few minutes of her time. Samantha, in turn, admired Richard's dedication to his children and his genuine interest in her thoughts and ideas. However, behind the facade of opulence and success lay a story that would shake the Thornfield mansion to its very foundation. Richard's wife, Karen Thornfield, had long suspected her husband's infidelity. The late-night phone calls, the secretive glances, they had all been pieces of a puzzle that Karen could no longer ignore. Consumed by anger and betrayal, she began to dig deeper, uncovering evidence that left no room for doubt. One fateful evening, Karen's discovery led her down a path she never thought she would tread. In her desperation to hurt Richard as he had hurt her, she turned to a sinister solution: poison. She researched toxins that would leave no trace and concocted a deadly plan. With a heart full of vengeance, she invited Samantha for a friendly dinner, feigning reconciliation and friendship. The dinner was lavish, the atmosphere tense. Karen watched Samantha's every move, her mind oscillating between the agony of betrayal and the determination to see her plan through. As the dessert plates were cleared, Karen offered Samantha a glass of wine laced with the poison. Samantha, unaware of the danger, took a sip and felt an immediate searing pain course through her body. She excused herself, claiming she wasn't feeling well, and left the Thornfield mansion, her heart pounding with fear and confusion. As the night wore on, Samantha's condition worsened. She stumbled into her apartment, her vision blurred and her breath shallow. Panic set in as she realized that something was terribly wrong. In a desperate bid to save herself, she managed to call for help before collapsing unconscious. Back at the mansion, chaos reigned as the truth slowly unraveled. Richard had been worried sick about Samantha's abrupt departure, her unease palpable during dinner. Unable to shake off his concern, he decided to visit her apartment, only to find her unconscious and in dire need of medical attention. Samantha was rushed to the hospital, her life hanging by a thread. As Samantha fought for her life, her body weak and her spirit determined, Richard never left her side, his worry and guilt gnawing at him. He was consumed by a sense of responsibility and a growing realization of his feelings for Samantha. His emotions were a tangled web: guilt for neglecting his children, confusion over his marriage, and a growing attachment to the woman who had brought light into his children's lives. Meanwhile, Karen was left in a state of uncertainty. Samantha's sudden departure had left her bewildered, unsure whether her plan had succeeded. She awaited news of Samantha's condition, torn between her desire for vengeance and a growing sense of remorse. The days stretched on, and with each passing moment, Karen's inner turmoil intensified. Then, as the sun set behind the city's towering buildings, Richard returned home from the hospital. A glimmer of relief and hope danced in his eyes as he entered the Thornfield mansion. He had just received news that Samantha's condition was improving, she would recover. A smile tugged at his lips, his heart lighter than it had been in days. He found Karen in the living room, her expression a mix of forced cheerfulness and something else, something he couldn't quite place. "Karen," he said, his voice soft but filled with genuine happiness, "Samantha's going to be okay. She's going to recover." Karen's eyes met his, and for a brief moment, something flashed across her features, a flicker of emotion that Richard couldn't quite decipher. Her smile, though plastered on her face, seemed strained, her joy not quite reaching her eyes. "Oh, that's wonderful news," she exclaimed, her voice a tad too high-pitched. "I'm so glad to hear that." As Richard watched her, a nagging feeling gnawed at the back of his mind. Her reaction wasn't what he had expected. It was almost as if she was disappointed by the news. He shook off the unease, chalking it up to exhaustion and stress. However, as he continued to observe her, his suspicions grew. He couldn't ignore the discrepancy between her words and her demeanor. There was something off about her reaction, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. He knew Karen well enough to sense when she was hiding something, and this felt like one of those times. Later that night, as Richard lay awake in bed, his mind kept wandering back to that evening, the dinner, Samantha's sudden illness, and now Karen's strange reaction. A chilling thought crept into his mind, one that he had been avoiding but could no longer ignore. Could it be? Could Karen really have done something so unthinkable? Unable to push the thought away, Richard found himself getting out of bed. He made his way to Karen's study, his heart pounding as he opened one of the drawers that held her personal items. His breath caught in his throat as he saw it, a box filled with vials, powders, and substances that sent a shiver down his spine. They looked like ingredients that could be used for making poison. His hands trembled as he picked up the box, his mind racing with disbelief and horror. He couldn't believe his eyes. His own wife, the mother of his children, could have been capable of such a heinous act. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the picture they painted was one of betrayal and darkness. The room felt stifling, his thoughts suffocating him. He closed the drawer slowly, his mind whirling with a mixture of shock, anger, and a deep sense of sorrow. The weight of the truth bore down on him. Karen must have known about his affair with Samantha all along. The realization was a punch to his gut, a sickening blow that left him reeling. Richard stumbled back to his room, his mind in turmoil. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his heart heavy with a mix of emotions. How could Karen have let her jealousy and anger drive her to such extremes? How could she have jeopardized not only Samantha's life, but also the lives of their children? As the night wore on, Richard grappled with a decision. He knew he couldn't keep this revelation to himself. The truth had to come out, and the authorities had to be involved. He thought of his children, Samantha, and the web of lies that had ensnared them all. It was time to break free from the darkness that had clouded their lives. The next morning, Richard called the police, his voice steady but laced with pain, as he recounted his discoveries. Karen's arrest was swift, and the ensuing investigation unraveled a web of deceit and betrayal that had been hidden behind the Thornfield mansion's glamorous facade. The trial was a public spectacle, the details of Karen's actions shocking the city's elite. Richard sat in the courtroom, his heart heavy with a mix of sorrow and anger. He couldn't believe that the woman he had once loved could have been capable of such cruelty. As the evidence mounted against her, Karen's defense crumbled, and she was sentenced to prison. The aftermath was a tempest of emotions. The Thornfield children struggled to come to terms with their mother's actions and their father's subsequent choices. Richard, in an attempt to move forward, proposed to Samantha. Their relationship, born out of tragedy and strengthened by shared experiences, blossomed into a love that offered them solace amidst the chaos. Years passed, and time began to weave its healing magic upon the Thornfield family. Richard and Samantha had weathered the storms that had shaken their lives, and their love had grown stronger with each passing day. The Thornfield mansion, once a silent witness to secrets and betrayals, now stood as a symbol of resilience and strength, a light that had guided them through the darkest of times. And so, one sunny afternoon, beneath the sprawling oak tree in the mansion's garden, they exchanged their vows in an intimate ceremony. The guests included close friends, family, and a special pair of attendees, Emily and Ethan Thornfield. The children, now older and wiser, had not been supportive of their father's relationship with Samantha in the beginning. They had felt the sting of betrayal and the disappointment that came with discovering the affair. The pain had run deep, casting a shadow over their perception of their father. As the years had gone by, Emily and Ethan had struggled with their feelings. They saw their father's remorse and the genuine love he held for Samantha, a woman who had stood by their sides during their most vulnerable moments. The mansion had transformed from a place of sorrow to one of healing, and Samantha had played an integral role in that transformation. Gradually, the walls they had built around their hearts began to crumble. Through conversations, shared experiences, and acts of kindness, Emily and Ethan began to see Samantha in a new light. They recognized the strength of her character, her unwavering love for their father, and her genuine care for them. The bond that had once been strained was now mending, thread by thread. The wedding day was a turning point. Emily and Ethan watched as Richard and Samantha exchanged their vows, their love evident in every word and gesture. The ceremony was a celebration not only of their union, but also of the journey that brought them all to this point. Tears were shed, hearts were opened, and wounds were finally beginning to heal. After the ceremony, as the sun set behind the cityscape, Emily and Ethan approached their father and Samantha. Their expressions were a mix of uncertainty and vulnerability, their emotions laid bare. Richard and Samantha, understanding the weight of the moment, welcomed them with open arms. Ethan, Emily, Richard began, his voice tinged with emotion. "We know that our past has been marked by mistakes and hurt. I can't change what happened, but I can promise you that I have learned from it. Samantha has taught me the importance of honesty, forgiveness, and the strength to overcome our darkest moments." Samantha stepped forward, her eyes brimming with tears. "Emily, Ethan, I want you to know that I never intended for any of this to happen. I care deeply about both of you, and my love for your father has helped me grow as a person. I want to be a part of your lives, to support you, and to show you that I am committed to making amends for the pain I've caused." Emily looked at her father and then at Samantha, her eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. "It's been hard, Dad. We were hurt and we felt betrayed. But I can see that you've changed, that you've both changed, and I don't want to hold on to that anger anymore." Ethan nodded, his voice steady as he spoke. "Yeah, we've all made mistakes, but maybe it's time for us to move forward. We've missed out on so much, and I don't want to miss out on any more." Richard's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. He reached out and embraced his children, holding them close. "Thank you, both of you. Your forgiveness means the world to me. I promise that I will do everything in my power to be the father you deserve." Samantha wiped away a tear and smiled through her emotions. "And I promise to always be here for you, to support you and be a part of your lives." In that moment, under the starlit sky, the Thornfield family forged a new bond. The wounds of the past were not forgotten, but they were no longer the focal point. Love, forgiveness, and a shared commitment to building a better future took center stage.